Sidewalks located in public rights-of-way along a street or roadway provide pedestrians with access to commercial districts, schools, businesses, government offices, and transportation facilities such as bus stops. Sidewalks are also programs of state and local governments that provide essential services to the public. The Americans with Disabilities Act, a federal law known as the ADA, requires that state and local governments provide access to programs, services, and activities, including public sidewalks in the rights-of-way. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, known as Section 504, includes similar requirements for public entities that receive federal financial assistance. This results in a system of sidewalks and pedestrian crossings that are accessible to and usable by individuals with disabilities. When public entities, such as state or local governments, construct new sidewalks or alter existing ones, the ADA requires them to be accessible to and usable by individuals with disabilities. The ADA also requires the maintenance of accessible features so that accessibility is retained over time. ADA Title II regulations require that persons with disabilities are able to participate in state and local government programs, including sidewalks in the public rights-of-way and pedestrian crossings at intersections. The 2010 ADA Standards for Accessible Design issued by the U.S. Department of Justice, or DOJ, contain specific requirements for curb ramps at intersections. The ADA standards do not contain specific requirements for other elements in the public rights-of-way, such as sidewalks. However, under Title II of the ADA and Section 504, public entities must ensure that all their programs, activities, and services, including their public rights-of-way, are accessible to and usable by individuals with disabilities. In the absence of specific technical standards for the other elements in the public rights-of-way, public entities have some degree of flexibility in determining how they will comply with the general accessibility obligation under Title II of the ADA and Section 504. Public entities may turn to different resources for guidance when determining how to ensure accessibility. For example, a public entity could look to the ADA standards for guidance on issues that arise in the public rights-of-way, such as sidewalks. As another option, public entities may consider the U.S. Access Board's 2011 Proposed Accessibility Guidelines for Pedestrian Facilities in the Public Rights-of-Way, or PROWAG, which have been proposed as minimum guidelines for facilities in the public rights-of-way. Because these proposed guidelines have not yet been finalized by the Access Board and adopted by the DOJ or the U.S. Department of Transportation, they are not enforceable standards. The draft guidelines may, however, provide a useful framework to help public entities meet their obligations to make their programs, services, and activities in the public rights-of-way readily accessible to and usable by individuals with disabilities. For that reason, the Federal Highway Administration considers the draft PROWAG a best practice for the design and construction of sidewalks, pedestrian facilities, and other elements in the public rights-of-way. There are 5 key elements in PROWAG that pertain to sidewalks: width, cross slope, grade, surface, and protruding objects. A few of the sidewalk provisions of PROWAG, particularly those that address accessibility for individuals with limited vision, pertain to the entire pedestrian circulation path, which is the full width of the sidewalk that provides access to public transit, commercial centers, entertainment venues, and other places where people want to go. All the sidewalk provisions pertain to the portion of the pedestrian circulation path known as a pedestrian access route, or PAR. The PAR provides a continuous, unobstructed route for pedestrians with disabilities, including individuals who use wheelchairs or other mobility devices. To begin, the PROWAG proposes that the PAR must be at least 4 feet wide to accommodate individuals using a wheelchair, crutches, or walker. This width is measured excluding the curb. A 5-foot wide passing area should be provided at no more than 200-foot intervals. For a uniform appearance and ease of construction, the Federal Highway Administration recommends a minimum sidewalk width of 5 feet. Wider sidewalks are preferred to accommodate crowds, to allow space for 2 wheelchairs to pass each other, and when the sidewalk is located immediately adjacent to the curb. Next, the ProWag proposes that the maximum allowable cross slope of a PAR is 2%. The portion of the pedestrian circulation path outside the PAR, however, may have a steeper but generally uniform cross slope. While some slope is necessary for drainage, a cross slope steeper than 2% causes some pedestrians with disabilities to veer to the downhill side, making travel more strenuous for individuals using manual wheelchairs, crutches, and walkers. Driveways that cross the PAR can create a barrier to accessibility if not designed and constructed properly. The driveway interface with the sidewalk can be addressed in a variety of ways. For example, if the sidewalk is set back from the curb, creating a PAR across the driveway, meeting the 2% cross-slope provision, becomes easier. However, where the sidewalk is attached to the curb, the sidewalk should be offset at the driveway to cross above the driveway apron, or the entire sidewalk and driveway apron may need to be lowered to nearly street level. Pay careful attention to drainage with this lowered design. By incorporating accessibility provisions into the driveway permitting process, public entities can avoid potential legal challenges and costly rework. Third, the ProWag proposes that when a sidewalk runs parallel to a road, the grade or running slope of the PAR can follow the grade of the roadway. However, in all other cases, including built facilities such as pedestrian overpasses and underpasses, the maximum grade allowed is 5%, unless an alternative PAR such as a ramp, elevator, or platform lift is provided. Public entities may provide stairs in addition to the PAR. However, use of the PAR should not result in a substantially longer travel distance. Fourth, the ProWag proposes that the surface of the PAR must be firm, stable, and slip-resistant. The ProWag proposes additional surface guidelines for the PAR, including vertical changes in level cannot be more than 1/4 inch. Changes in level more than 1/4 inch must be beveled or ramped. Grade breaks must be flush. Grates and joints must prevent a sphere of 1/2 inch in diameter from entering, and any elongated openings must be set perpendicular to the dominant direction of travel. While not required, it's a best practice to apply these surface provisions to the entire pedestrian circulation path and locate utility covers, vault frames, and gratings outside the PAR where possible. If these elements are located in the PAR, the surface provisions, including the 1/4 inch maximum change in level, apply. The ADA requirement to maintain accessible features is particularly important in the PAR as soils shift and tree roots develop. Some public entities restrict use of decorative pavers to outside the PAR to reduce the potential for vertical changes in level. Fifth, protruding objects are problematic for pedestrians with vision disabilities. Therefore, the ProWag proposes that the entire pedestrian circulation path be free of objects that protrude into the circulation path from overhead or the side, such as tree limbs, objects attached to utility poles, and signs. When such objects cannot be avoided, public entities should make them detectable by individuals with vision disability. Overhead items that are less than 80 inches above the walking surface cannot be detected by a pedestrian using a white cane. Where such objects cannot be relocated, guardrails or other barriers with a leading edge no higher than 27 inches should be used. Likewise, a pedestrian using a white cane will not detect an object that protrudes into the circulation path at a height of 27 to 80 inches above the surface of the sidewalk. The ProWag proposes that such objects protruding from the side or from a post into the circulation path by more than 4 inches must be made detectable by adding a base at least 2.5 inches high that reduces the protrusion to 4 inches or less as measured from the base. And when a sign or other object is mounted between two posts, separated by 12 inches or more, the ProWag proposes that the bottom of the object must be either lower than 27 inches to be detectable or more than 80 inches above the sidewalk for head clearance. An alternative to installing protective barriers or detectable bases is to relocate objects that fall in the 27 to 80 inch height range. Let's see how one public entity, which chooses to follow the ProWag, approaches the reconstruction of a deteriorated public roadway that provides access to a baseball stadium. The roadway is also used by the public bus system and is located in a commercial area. At the project's onset, the engineer hosts a public meeting to get input from the community and learns the public's concerns about the lack of sidewalks and landscaping and inadequate lighting. Following the public entity's design manual, the project engineer redesigns the corridor to provide a sidewalk for pedestrians. While she would like to provide more, the engineer designs a par that is 6 feet wide so 2 pedestrians can pass each other. To ensure the cross slope does not exceed 2% after construction, she specifies a cross slope of 1.5%, which is a 0.5% less than the maximum set forth in the ProWag. She ensures that the par is continued across the commercial driveways, which must be rebuilt, and that all other accessibility needs are included. The plans also specify additional street lamps and landscaping. She consults with a landscape architect and includes plantings that will not need to be pruned back frequently to remove protruding limbs and will not damage the sidewalk as their root systems mature. She also makes sure that the street lamps and other street furniture do not create protruding objects, decreased headroom, or reduce the width of the par. Before construction begins, the project inspector meets with the contractor and reviews the width, cross slope, and grade requirements as well as the landscape plan. Before the concrete is poured, he reviews the forms and ensures that the design requirements are met. After the concrete is placed and throughout the project, he ensures that the facility is accessible. As we have just seen, to ensure that its sidewalks in the public rights-of-way do not discriminate against individuals with disabilities, a public entity should provide accessible connections from sidewalks to intersections, transit stops, sites, and facilities. Design sidewalks so that slopes and dimensions meet the guidelines once construction is complete. Consider and plan for the cost of sidewalk maintenance over time when choosing surface materials, landscaping, and other design features. Inspect sidewalk width, cross slope, grade, and surfacing during construction. Design, construct, and maintain sidewalks to eliminate protruding objects or make them detectable by a person using a white cane, and update driveway permitting processes to ensure that accessibility of the par is maintained. There are many elements to consider when planning, designing, constructing, and maintaining pedestrian access routes that are accessible to users of all abilities. For additional information, review the 2010 ADA standards, the ProWag guidelines, and your entity's specifications, policies, procedures, and ordinances as they pertain to accessible sidewalk design. If you encounter a challenging situation or need further guidance, visit the Access Board's website or contact your state DOT or FHWA division.